So, a little over a year ago, not only a year ago now, but little couple of months ago now, I was on the Labour Social with Graham and Phil, and of course, the question of Liz Truss came up. It was almost a year ago since her disastrous ascension, and of course, what it would lead to. And Graham asked me the question, what do you think the future is for Liz Truss? And I said it as I had been saying for quite a while. She is planning a return. That all her appearances, all her stuff is to try and gin up support, that she is going to have another run for the premiership. That is what she is doing. She is being unrepentant for all her bad ideas, which, well, we knew what it led to, the complete almost crashing of the UK economy, which almost destroyed the UK pensions industry. And that would have been an absolute disaster. But we'll get on to something later, which proves it could have been even worse than that, even worse than a disaster. It could have been an absolute catastrophe of economic proportions that this country has not seen for generations. And yet, Liz Truss, completely unrepentant, as just yesterday, she came out and said, look, I was right. All my crazy economic stuff, it was all right. None of all that stuff that happened, I'm not to blame. That's just part of the um, orthodoxy 25-year system that we've had, and we've got to shatter it. We've got to move on. But what is she proposing? Well, it's what I've always said Liz Truss and many of these other conservatives who push this crazy nonsense are. It is this free market fundamentalist libertarianism. And you get it in her speech because she says that interest rates are too low and have been too low for too long. Why? Because in this free market libertarian mindset, what this has done, it has stifled growth, and that interest rates being low are bad, even though we see all the problems that we are experiencing with high interest rates now. um, she's saying that because of this, this feeds into the usual mindset that we've seen from free market fundamentalists all this time, that there are these zombie companies that should have died because they are not innovating, they are not being productive enough, and they are surviving because of these low interest rates, because they can borrow this money at such a low interest rate, they can keep on surviving. They are zombie companies. And this stops these companies from dying and these brand new companies rising to take their places. That's stifling the UK's growth. Not only that, she also, as I said, that because of these low interest rates, this is what has led to more government borrowing. Something which her government would have ultimately had to do. Because remember, her mini budget blew about a £50 billion black hole in the UK economy. And she's still pushing this idea of these unfunded tax cuts. She also wants to raise the pension age, but also reduce the amount that pensioners actually receive. And remember, we are in Europe, the lowest rate of pension in Europe, and Liz Truss wants to make that even less. All this nonsense is going to culminate, I think, in one of two things. First of all, this shows that what I've been saying all the right is completely true, that Rishi Sunak is absolutely a weak prime minister. He is too weak to even stop Liz Truss going out and saying that the government is completely wrong and that I was right. And hey, if I was right, should I not return to my rightful place? Because that's what she's really saying. That's what she's really saying in this speech. that I should be returned to my rightful place so that I can carry out this grand economic vision that I have to make the UK this amazing growth fed country when it would be these crazy free market fundamentalist ideas, which we know full well do not work because if they did work, every other country in the world would be doing them to chase that, that growth dragon that these free market fundamentalists are obsessed with. They are completely addicts to growth. They do not care what they do to achieve it, so long as they achieve it. And they've got to a point now where all they have is theory, and that theory has not been put into true economic practice. And when it has been tested, it has shown that, well, actually, it wouldn't work. Liz Truss's mini budget was the perfect example of that theory being put into practice and crashing the economy. The other thing that I think this is ultimately for is Liz Truss shouting out, saying, Rishi, you need to bring me back into power. You need to reinstitute me. You need to make me chancellor. Because we've been reporting a couple of times how Jeremy Hunt, amongst many of these free market fundamentalists, is a big, big disappointment. They do not like him. They hate him with a passion. But hey, if we can, maybe we'll put the threat, well, if you don't do that, we'll replace you with Liz, Rishi. But if you placate us by maybe putting Liz in with, replacing him with, Jeremy Hunt, like I say, Rishi Sunak from the very beginning has been a weak prime minister, unable to even choose his cabinet of people he would want, unable to stop rebellions after rebellions. When he has tried to put forward any policy, it has been met with a rebellion, and then very often there has popped up a rebellion about that rebellion about the policy he is putting forward. He is weak beyond comparison. He has not been able to restore any discipline in the Conservative Party. If anything, it has gotten worse. And Truss is responsible. It would not shock me if it comes out in a couple of years later that all this stuff we've heard about, that there's already 40 letters with Sir Graham Brady. Wouldn't surprise me if that came from her camp. Because one of the big things that in the past has stopped certainly Boris Johnson being replaced a lot sooner than he was, before the MPs finally got rid of him, was that there was no legitimate successor. Same for, Theresa May. When it became clear that Boris was the legitimate successor to May, out she went. Currently, there is no legitimate seen successor to Rishi Sunak. But if Truss keeps on doing this and keeps on trying to say, hey, I was right, because we need to smash this economic orthodoxy and do all these crazy free market fundamentalist policies, which are going to do incredible damage to the UK, but people like this want to do because they're ideologues and they believe that their ideology is pure and sacred and cannot be wrong. Even though she's already been proved 100% wrong, the danger is that they go ahead and they do it. Because if you are a Conservative MP, you are sitting there. Rishi Sunak is not bringing in the promised return, that he would stabilize the party, that he would reverse the polling fortunes, that he would try and somehow restabilize the British economy. He is doing none of that. He is doing nothing. He has earned the moniker of inaction man. And yet, here you have this somewhat dynamic individual, Liz Truss, who is putting forward crazy economic policies, which, hey, she might have crashed the economy last time, but who knows? Maybe she learned her lesson. Maybe we can put her in. Maybe these policies are actually right. Meanwhile, of course, there are a good deal number of Conservatives that do support this free market fundamentalist ideology who would love to do all this. The complete dismantling, of course, of the welfare state and turning us into, well, a Singapore on the Thames, the much vaunted true end goal of Brexit. So, I have to say this, and I say this now. I was right. When Graham asked me this question, do you think Liz Truss is what's her future? I said it very plainly. She's unrepentant and she's planning a comeback. She's on her way back. And she is gearing up, I think, ready for a fight. Why? Because in a couple of months, Rishi's protection from the 1922s, from being challenged, comes up. And at that point, he'll be open to being challenged. Who do you think the challenger is going to be? So I'll leave you with that very possibly disastrous. I hope it doesn't come to pass, but I fear it might. This eventual return of Liz Truss. So, as always, thank you very much for watching. Please do remember to click on the like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, as always, thank you very much for watching. And of course, as always, we'll see you all next time.